happens when an arrogant superstar wakes up on Christmas morning to find his fame gone, his fortune vanished, and his long-lost ex-girlfriend calling him her husband? Let's find out. Once upon a time, there was a man named Park Kang. He was a massive superstar actor, reaching the absolute peak of his career. He was so famous and wealthy that money was basically meaningless to him. His mother could buy anything she wanted, anywhere in the world. He loved showing off his success. Wherever Kang went, his manager, Jo-Yoon, was right beside him. They had a long history together. Back in the day, Jo-Yoon was also an aspiring actor. He never landed a good role, so he eventually quit acting and became Kang's manager just to make a living. One night, Kang attended a fancy awards ceremony for filmmakers. As expected, he won the award for Best Male Actor. Standing on stage, Kang gave a speech. He talked about how he never expected to make it this far, considering he started with nothing and came from a remote, quiet place. While he was accepting his award, a woman named Soo-Hyeon was watching him on TV. Soo-Hyeon was Kang's ex-girlfriend from back when he was poor and unknown. She had just returned from New York to open an art exhibition in Seoul. It was Christmas Eve, December 24th. After the awards, Jo-Yoon was ready to head home to celebrate with his family. However, Kang didn't want to be alone. He dragged Jo-Yoon to a bar, the same small bar where they used to drink before Kang became a big shot. As they drank, they started talking about the old days. 10 years ago, Kang and Jo-Yoon had auditioned for the same movie role. They both made it to the final round. In this reality, luck favored Kang. He won the audition and shot to stardom, while Jo-Yoon failed and became a manager. Jo-Yoon got a little sentimental. He told Kang, if you hadn't passed that audition, you might be living a totally different life. You'd probably be married to Soo-Hyeon and living happily. Hearing that name made Kang think. He remembered breaking up with Soo-Hyeon in this very bar a decade ago. He had chosen his career over her, and she went to New York to study art. When they left the bar, Kang still wasn't ready to go home. He wanted to go to another place to keep drinking. He told Kang to grab a taxi and go home alone. Kang hopped into a taxi, heavily drunk. The taxi driver struck up a conversation. The driver was excited to have such a famous passenger on a holiday. He assumed Kang must be the happiest man alive since he had fame, money, and success. But Kang sighed and said the driver didn't understand how he really felt. The driver looked at him in the rearview mirror and said something profound. Being rich and famous doesn't guarantee happiness. Then the driver asked a strange question. He asked, "What would you do if you had the chance to change the past?" It was as if the driver could read Kang's mind. He knew Kang was regretting the moment he broke up with Soo-Hyeon. The driver mysteriously said he could help turn those thoughts into reality. The next morning, Kang woke up, but he wasn't in his soft, expensive bed. He was lying on a wooden floor in a modest, messy house he didn't recognize. Before he could figure out what was happening, 2 young kids, twins, jumped on him, calling him Dad. Kang was terrified. Then he saw a woman walking toward him. It was Soo-Hyeon, but she wasn't his ex-girlfriend. In this house, she was his wife. She scolded him, thinking he was still drunk from the night before. Kang's brain couldn't process this. He tried to call Jo-Yoon, but the number didn't work. Panicked, he ran out of the house and took a taxi to his luxury apartment building. He breezed past security, but the guards looked at him like he was a stranger. When he got to the penthouse door, his passcode didn't work. Suddenly, the door opened, and a stranger was standing there. Kang, thinking a thief had broken into his home, pushed his way in and started causing a scene. The police were called immediately. It was a mess. The real owner thought Kang was his wife's secret lover, and Kang kept screaming, "I am a famous actor!" But nobody knew who he was. At the police station, the officers checked their database. The apartment did not belong to Park Kang. He had nothing. His wealth, his fame, his house. It was all gone in a single night. To make matters worse, Soo-Hyeon had to come pick him up from the station. She was furious. When Kang tried to tell her he wasn't her husband, she thought he was trying to ask for a divorce and slapped him to snap him out of it. Back at the small house, Kang sat there confused. He looked at the twins, Ro-hee and Ro-ha. He told his daughter, Ro-hee, that he had lost his memory. He asked her about his life. Ro-hee explained that, yes, he was an actor, but he definitely wasn't famous. He was basically a nobody who did reenactment scenes for a cheap TV show called Mystic TV. Kang realized that the strange taxi driver had swapped his life. In this reality, he wasn't the star. Life was hard. The rent was overdue, the house was small, and he had to look after the kids while Soo-Hyeon worked. He was bored and frustrated, but he slowly started to learn about this new world. He met up with a friend named Wo-hee, who was in a theater troupe with him. He asked her about Jo-yoon. Wo-hee looked at him like he was crazy. Jo-yoon? She said. He's a massive superstar right now. It turned out their fates had swapped. In this world, Kang had skipped that final audition 10 years ago to stop Soo-Hyeon from leaving for New York. Because he didn't go to the audition, Jo-yoon got the part and became the famous actor instead. Curious, Kang went to the agency where Jo-yoon worked. He managed to get in and met the famous version of Jo-yoon. Surprisingly, Jo-yoon was happy to see him and treated him to a fancy lunch. Jo-yoon explained that he got his big break only because Kang didn't show up that day. Kang went to visit Soo-Hyeon at her gallery. He asked her a hypothetical question. What if you had gone to New York 10 years ago? Soo-Hyeon smiled and said she preferred her life right now, struggling but happy with Kang and the twins. Later, Kang performed in a small theater play with Wo-hee. Jo-yoon came to watch. The famous actor actually fell asleep during the show because he was so tired from his busy schedule. Afterward, Jo-yoon took the whole theater crew out for dinner. At dinner, the dynamic was interesting. Jo-yoon was rich and paid for everyone, tossing his credit card on the table. Back at his modest house, Kang tried to make the best of his new life. He threw a party for Soo-Hyeon and her friends using food he brought home, and despite being a struggling actor in this reality, he was quite charming and popular with the neighbors. However, family dynamics were still tricky. His mother visited the next morning and was much fussier than the mother he knew in his rich life. She scolded him for quitting his previous job and gave him money, urging him to visit his father's grave. Kang, holding onto old grudges and bad memories of his father, ignored the request. Kang eventually went out for an acting audition. He actually performed quite well, but the casting directors weren't interested in him. They knew he was best friends with the famous star Jo-yoon and only wanted Kang to convince Jo-yoon to be in their film. Kang met up with Jo-yoon to discuss it and learned a hard truth. In this timeline, Jo-yoon became a star because he took the roles Kang had rejected to support his family. Jo-yoon, needing someone he could trust, offered Kang a job as his manager. Kang initially refused, feeling too proud and disappointed in how his life had turned out. Things got harder when Kang realized how much his family was struggling. He found out Soo-Hyeon had stopped teaching art classes and was secretly working at a convenience store to pay the bills. When his son, Ro-ha, had a minor accident and needed a hospital visit, Kang checked his bank account and saw he had absolutely no money. Feeling like a failure as a head of the household, he swallowed his pride and accepted the job as Jo-yoon's manager. Using his 10 years of experience from his past life as a superstar, Kang turned out to be an amazing manager. He negotiated better salaries for Jo-yoon and protected him from paparazzi. During a film shoot, Jo-yoon struggled to memorize lines and couldn't handle a horse riding scene. The director lost patience and asked Kang, who was an actor after all, to step in. Kang executed the stunts professionally, impressing the crew and even his own family. Life started to improve. Kang was earning steady money and enjoying his role as a father. However, he made the mistake of trying to move the family into a luxury apartment owned by Jo-yoon. Soo-Hyeon was furious. She felt that Kang was letting money change him and that he was too eager to leave behind the home where they had built their precious memories. This argument made Kang realize that luxury wasn't the most important thing. Happiness came from being with his family, regardless of their financial status. Time passed, and Kang found peace in this alternate life. He finished his acting role, gaining his own fans, while Jo-yoon won a Best Actor award. In his acceptance speech, Jo-yoon credited Kang for his success. Later, Jo-yoon admitted he was envious of Kang's family life and had fallen for Kang's friend, Wo-hee. On Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after his arrival, Kang took a taxi home. The driver told him his time was up, and he had to return to his original reality. Kang protested, wanting to stay with his family. The driver then revealed his true identity. He was Kang's deceased father. He apologized for working too much and neglecting Kang when he was a child. This emotional reunion allowed Kang to finally let go of his resentment. Kang returned home for one last night. He hugged his sleeping children and lay beside his wife, cherishing the moment because he knew he would be gone by morning. The next day, Kang woke up back in his luxury apartment. He was rich and famous again, but he felt empty. Jo-yoon arrived, back to being his manager, and revealed that only 1 day had passed in the real world. Kang immediately rushed to Soo-Hyeon's art exhibition. Although he arrived as it was closing, he found Soo-Hyeon and a painting she had done of the exact house from his alternate life. Realizing they shared the same dream of happiness, Kang took her to the real-life location of that house. He decided to pursue the life he had experienced in his dream. 2 years later, the story concluded with Kang and Soo-Hyeon happily married with twin children. ready to live out that beautiful future for real.